Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. This is the weekend edition where we interview notable people from the world of real estate investing. Today is no exception. We have an amazing guest. He's none other than Mr. George Ross. George is most known as Mr. Trump's right-hand man for most of 37 years. Prior to that, he worked for Saul Goldman for Goldman and DiLorenzo. And Saul Goldman was real estate in New York before the Trump name became synonymous with real estate in the New York area. He's done work for the owners of the New York Mets. He's done work for all kinds of high net worth families in the New York area. He's the author of 2 best-selling books on real estate and negotiation. He taught at the law school at NYU for over 20 years. He's just an amazing human being. Just so grateful to have the opportunity to connect with George every few weeks. In today's conversation, we're getting George's perspective on one of the hottest items in the news over the past week. Enjoy this conversation with George Ross.
Hello.
Good evening, George.
Hi, Victor. How are you?
I'm well, yourself?
Good. Can't complain. Glad to be here.
Good. I was muted there for a moment. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Why don't we dive right in?
Okay. At your leisure.
So, George, let's start with the news. It's been a pretty exciting week. The big news, of course, the Justice Department investigation after 2 years and close to, $25 million, 580 witnesses, over 1 million pages in documentation, found nothing. What are you thinking?
Well, my feeling, it was ill-conceived when it started out, and it's certainly the results of it at this point indicate that it's a lot of money that was spent on something that was never really there, which was basically Russia collusion. There was no question. There was no question previously that Russia had interfered in elections in the past and with almost every country. So that wasn't a surprise, but that there was a thought that Trump colluded because ultimately he may have ended up as the beneficiary because of the emails, the Clinton emails, and the fact that the Democratic Party was hacked into at that. But that was collusion. I just thought it was ill-conceived, but they went through it, and I think it's a big waste of time. It's a lot of time, a lot of money, and the result is meager. So
Absolutely.
I think that governments have a lot more to do that's more important than what was done, but politics are politics.
There's been a lot of discussion about the weaponization of various bureaucracies in government, and that maybe bureaucracy is not supposed to be partisan. It's supposed to be independent. It's supposed to be an arm of the government, but not politically affiliated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This was a political affiliation. There's no doubt in my mind anyway that this was political. In other words, the feeling was that I got out of it is that the powers that be in the various departments did not wanted Hillary to win and didn't want Trump to win, and they were preconceived. And when he did win, at that point, they were very upset and said this shouldn't have happened, and were willing to do basically anything to try to upset it. That's my feeling, but it's hard. People, they're human beings, but their political bias should not interfere in the performance of their duties when they're a part of an investigative agency.
Exactly. What do you think?
Too much power.
What do you think this means for the balance of this first term in the presidency?
I think he's a shoo-in. I think he's a shoo-in unless the Democrats come up with a strong potential candidate and start talking about things that the people really want to hear about or are concerned about. That's my feeling. I mean, there are major. They started now. I mean, he threw him Trump threw him a hot potato, which was good. Now that he wants to try to upset or let the court upset Obamacare, which is what they wanted to do long ago, except that it was voted down. But the question of health care is extremely important and something that resonates with the people. And I think it's that plus working on the infrastructures and things that are meaningful are something that the Congress ought to do. But they're too much concerned about fighting each other as a party than they are really doing something that's the best, that's appropriate for the country. I think the people are being shortchanged. But that's the media.
If the national discourse continues along with, an additional 82 witnesses being asked to testify in front of Congress.
No, that's ridiculous. That's a waste of time.
Right. If that continues, what do you think the impact will be on 2020?
I think that the people will get up in arms, and they're going to basically say, if this is the best the Democrats can come up with, forget it. We'd rather have Trump for another 4 years. And they're going far afield from what they should be doing. You want to look into his personal finances. You want to look into his business practices. I mean, this is the president. What he did before is important, but they're not talking about crimes. They're talking about looking for something that they can use as a weapon to throw back at him that the people will be unhappy with. And the bulk of the people, my feeling is, don't really care. They're not really concerned about it. And if you look at the polls, they're not. They're interested in things that affect their pocketbook. This doesn't affect their pocketbook or their livelihood or their jobs. And I think it's going in the wrong track. And I think that effectively, that if they continue down that track, I think it will backfire on the Democrats, because they haven't come up. What have they come up with as a plan? What do they want to do? They haven't done anything. They could come up with, except to try anything that's if Trump's for, they're against. So as long as it's that partisan, you got I just don't see anything really coming out of it. And who knows? But there's going to be an awful lot of stuff that's going to come out in the time now. If you look at how many potential candidates there are for president, and some of the ideas they're coming up with are just so way out of bounds. You're going to get rid of fossil fuels. You're going to do this. We're going to have the green team. And it's just, they got to get down to common sense. And I think the American people generally, the average person, is smart enough to look through it and say, what are you really doing that's important for me? And unless you get to that, you're going to lose the votes.
It is. We're definitely living in interesting times, as they say.
Yes. Well, you look what's going on in Britain. I mean, what more do you need than that? They don't know what to do with Brexit, and they're having their own problems. The House of Commons doesn't agree with that, with the House of Lords, and they don't agree with the Prime Minister. And meanwhile, the people took a stand. They want out of the EU. So the people want to go one way, but the government can't come up with a plan that makes sense or that works through. So you got a similar situation where the people have expressed a will, but the government hasn't followed it.
Well, I mean, the people have expressed a will, but only marginally. If you think about it, the margin of the win was less than 1%. And within 24 hours of the vote, it was acknowledged publicly by the proponents of the Brexit movement that they in fact lied about some of the benefits. That literally came out within 24 hours. So if a second referendum were held today, the UK having suffered some very significant economic impact, not obvious to me that the Brexit movement would win.
Probably. You don't know, but it's hard that they don't really want to get it to another vote. And it's again, they got it's politics in a different country.
Yeah.
On a different basis. That's what it is.
Well, folks, there you have it. You have George's perspective on what's happening in the news this week. Understand, George is not one of these guys that wants to be out front, in the front of the microphone, in front of the cameras, on any of the major TV networks, but he's someone who has a unique perspective on what's happening. The beauty is everyone gets to make up their own mind in terms of what they agree and disagree with. And remember, I don't believe that George Ross is a Donald Trump fan. He worked for him for 37 years, and he understands him perhaps better than anybody else on earth. I cherish the opportunity to speak with George on a regular basis and wanted to share his perspectives with you, the listener. If you're loving what you're hearing on the Real Estate Espresso podcast, go out and tell 2 friends today about the show. If they don't listen to podcasts, take a moment and show them how easy it is to subscribe to a podcast and have this content delivered to their computer or smartphone each and every day. Why keep all this goodness to yourself? Spread the love around. With that, I'd love to wish you a great rest of your weekend. Go make some great things happen. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.